Hello, and welcome to This is USG, a video podcast by the universities at Shady Grove. 9 universities, 1 campus, great results. I'm Khademian, Executive Director of the universities at Shady Grove. There are many attributes that make USG a special place in higher education in Maryland. But among the foundational attributes are the wraparound services and support systems for students pursuing their degrees at USG. The quality of these services and the success of our students reflect the commitment and know-how of a dedicated staff and the vision and direction of an innovative leader who has guided student services from the first days in the fall of 2000. I am delighted to introduce this visionary leader and our guest this evening, Robyn Dinicola, the Chief Student Affairs Officer at USG. Robyn, welcome.
Thank you. So nice to be with you this week. I appreciate it.
I'm so happy to have you as well. It's great to have a chance to just focus and talk with you one-on-one this way. So Robyn, I'm going to start off to ask you to reflect a little bit about your past and your path here. I happen to know that you are a Hall of Famer, an athletic Hall of Famer in basketball from the University of Pittsburgh, Bradford. I think a shooting guard and a point guard, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow, you do your homework.
Yeah, and and I noted when I was reading about your honor that they said you were tenacious. That you went after the ball, and you were a rapid shooter and all these things. And I can see that. I can see that from my time knowing you, that you pursue things with persistence and tenacity in a really wonderful way. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your path here, Robyn. If you want to connect it to the athletics, that would be great. You don't have to. But I wonder if you could share with us a little bit about your path to student services and to your leadership role at USG.
Happy to do that. And for those watching, should know that you and I have that Hall of Famer status in common because you are also a Hall of Famer at your college campus. So just a cool fun fact about both of us.
There you go.
A bit about how I made my way to Shady Grove. In 1999, I was working as the Assistant Director of Operations for the Office of Student Financial Aid at the University of Maryland, College Park. And I was approached by some folks who were talking about this new innovative educational initiative that was being formed in Montgomery County. And did I want to have a role in helping to create a student support services model for this new innovative place? And you reflect in that moment, and maybe you had a similar reaction to when you thought about applying for this job. It's a very complex arrangement, and back in 1999, it seemed a very interesting but foreign concept. But the more I learned about it, and in particular, the more I learned about the student body that we would be serving, I really got excited about the opportunity to be part of this exciting new initiative. And while I was employed in financial aid, I really loved the work that we were doing to help level the playing field and to help enable the students who, really were it not for financial aid helping to level the playing field, could not pursue an education and achieve their dreams. And so knowing that at Shady Grove, I would be serving a 100% transfer student population at the undergraduate level, I really knew then that I thought that I would have a role that I could apply. Learning what I knew about college accessibility and affordability and applying that at a much broader level in a variety of ways. And so I really got excited and I jumped on board. And to tie it to your introduction about athletics, I will note another reason that I was really drawn to Shady Grove is I really felt that I could relate to the student body in that I too am a first generation college student. And I grew up in Pennsylvania, a family of 6, including 2 of the hardest working people you'll ever want to meet, and my parents. And they really instilled in me this work ethic, that I had by watching how hard they worked to try to make sure that their four daughters could have opportunities that they didn't have. And I remember very vividly one day I came home from school, and my dad had this classic car that it was for those car buffs out there. It was a Ford Galaxy 500. If you want to know the exact make and model of this car, and and he just kind of had it for years. And one day I came home and it was no longer parked in the driveway, so I kind of wondered where the car had gone. And my mom told me to kind of walk around the back, and I found a new half-court basketball court that was put in our backyard. He had lines drawn on it, the whole nine. And come to find out that he sold this car that he loved so much so that he could put in a basketball court for me. And for he knew that one path for me to be able to get to college, to achieve a college dream for me, was through basketball, was through athletics. And so it turned out that did help me to make my way through college with my basketball scholarship and the help of financial aid and a few student loans, here and there. But knowing that that one act really reaffirmed for me how much they believed in me, and I knew that I would not let them down as a result of that. So that really kind of lit a fire in me to be successful, for them, if not for myself. And what I find at Shady Grove is the students at Shady Grove have that same fire. There's that thing, that same determination that they will succeed despite any obstacle before them. And so for all of those reasons, it was just kind of a no-brainer for me to make my way to the Shady Grove campus.
What a great story. I love the story about your dad and the basketball court and that sacrifice for his family. It's beautiful. You note the students coming to Shady Grove have a real determination, like, I'm going to get my degree, I'm going to do this. And they may be working multiple jobs, they may have families, they may be supporting family businesses, but they find a way to do it. But I also will note that someone believes in them. And I think, this comes through in the student services model so clearly at Shady Grove, that it's not only determination, but there's a real commitment, believing that people can do this. And that comes through in your leadership, and it comes through across your whole team as well. I wonder if you could reflect on how the services have grown over these last 20 years. What's remained constant? I think I know one thing that's remained constant, and that's the commitment to the students, absolutely. But what's remained constant, and what has been the kind of core idea that has helped you grow and develop these services with your team?
Yeah, as I was reflecting for this interview, and reflecting on the past 20 years, what really has changed and what has remained constant. I mean, obviously, one of the most dramatic changes over the past 20 years at Shady Grove has been physical. And I don't just mean in the new gray hair and the wrinkles that I've had in the 20 years that I've been at Shady Grove, but just really the real physical makeup and character of the campus has changed a great deal. The growth of buildings and parking garages, and that has added a real vibrancy to the place. It really created this community, this feeling of vibrancy on campus. And I think over the past 20 years, there's some obvious things that have also changed. One is just in the character and the makeup of our partnerships. In the first graduating class, we had students from 3 institutional partners and just 38 graduates. And now the partnerships have grown in such a beautiful way, to really strengthen what we can provide at Shady Grove. And then staffing, we grew from 2 people. There were 2 of us that started student support services in 2000, myself and Julia Rader, who is now the director in our career center. And we now have 32 of the hardest working, most dedicated people that you'd ever had the pleasure to work with. But many of the things have remained a constant. The important things, like our mission. We began with a very strong student-centric focus to expand access to higher education in a convenient, affordable way, but also that responded to the needs of the regional workforce. And that commitment has never wavered, and really drives us, as you said, in our mission. And you see that in the passion and in the commitment of the staff. The constant also is in this incredible student body. This beautifully diverse, driven, motivated, just really determined to succeed group of students. It was true 20 years ago, and it's true now about the kind of students that we serve. And this feel and the focus of our the way that we operate has not changed either. We still have the same small class sizes that we did. We're still this truly welcoming environment that allows students to find their own path, and like they have this sense of belonging, this home, that they can call the universities at Shady Grove. So in all of those ways, I think there's been growth, but that thing that's special about Shady Grove, and the way that we serve students and that laser focus on that mission of student success has remained throughout this past 20 years.
Yeah, no, it's great, and it's clear that that core common commitment drives everyone. It's very clear. I'm wondering if you could say a little bit more about an initiative I know you've been really passionate about, that you've led. And I think in a lot of ways it is a culmination of a lot of the work that you've been doing, not only at USG, but across our partners with Montgomery College and with Montgomery County Public Schools. You've been a real champion of career readiness, and really embedding career readiness as an additional, wonderful added value, additional educational component for students at Shady Grove. Could you talk a little bit about how this evolved in your thinking and in the work in student services, and the importance of it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we recognized, is we have the honor of serving the students at Shady Grove for really a short time. They transfer to us after having completed an associate's degree or an equivalent amount of credits in the prerequisites at the undergraduate level. And we really just have this brief period of time with them. And when they enter at Shady Grove, these students really are focused on their goals, and their goals are to achieve their educational dreams and enter the career path that they set for themselves, to better their families. And they're really driven and focused, I think, on that goal. And while we provide a wide array of support services for students, what we acknowledged is that what students are really looking for are services that are really focused on helping them achieve their goal, and that is achieving career competence. And to do that, you really need to provide these wraparound support services that are in addition to the outstanding quality that they receive inside of the classroom through their academics. But there are other really important career readiness components that are critical for the students to obtain for them to be successful in that launching. And what we have done in student services at Shady Grove is we're really moving to align the support that we provide students in the areas that help them grow these career competency skill sets. Things like leadership development and global fluencies and communication skills and ability, working in a team, health and well-being, all things that students really need to be successful as they transition from education into the workforce. A real big pet peeve of mine is when folks try to refer to these as soft skills. They aren't soft skills, they're necessary skills. Yeah. And where we have really made a difference, I think, is we really leverage this amazing workforce that surrounds USG. And there are so many really terrific employers who are really in this with us. They're very dedicated to say, to want to build their own talent pipeline. And so they help us to not only contribute to the acquisition of these career readiness skill sets, but they also are willing to open their doors and provide extremely needed career experiential learning opportunities, which is, can be a real difference maker to students. Oftentimes we know that an internship can lead to employment. It's just a really critical component of the work that we do. And something that makes us a little bit special in our career support work is we really try to leverage this workforce to make sure that we give students local, convenient access to be able to grow their career readiness skill sets.
Yeah, that's great. Listening to you talk about your approach to career readiness, there's tremendous amount of teamwork that's involved, not only with your academic partners and with Montgomery County Public Schools, MC, and everyone else as well, but within your team as well. And I can see it every day working with your team. I can see the natural collaboration and things as well. I wonder if you could talk a little bit, Robyn, about your approach to leadership. You've grown with this role. You've grown the division. You've built a team. What guides you as a leader? What motivates you as a leader? How do you see your role as a leader in this really critical service area?
That's a great question. I am a big fan of making sure that there is a really clear shared goal and shared mission. If you have a group of people who really buy in to your goals and your mission and your values, what's important to you, as I like to say, and you hire the right, really good people, sometimes what you can do as a leader is give them the space, get out of the way, and let folks really do what they do. One of the reasons I love Shady Grove, and I've been at Shady Grove as long as I have, is because it is the ultimate opportunity to innovate, to pilot, to try new things, to not be afraid to make a mistake. And I hope that that's the kind of leadership that I instill in my team. We have the opportunity to really work with our partner campuses, to collaborate, to pilot, to try new things that on a home campus, you might not have the ability to do. Where at Shady Grove, we thrive on that opportunity. So I really think it's important to, you have to have the foundation of a shared mission and a shared strategy and a shared approach. In student academic services, we develop a strategic plan every year. We make sure that we rally around, what's important this year. What are we going to focus on together so that all 32 of us can speak the same language? And we can support each other. We can lift each other up in one another's goals. We just had an all-staff meeting today where we shared some of the innovations and great work that's happening right now. And letting them hear from one another on the great work that they're doing in this virtual space and best practices. And agreeing that our job is to lift each other up, that, we want to make sure that students are aware of all of the amazing opportunities and work that's happening right now at the Shady Grove campus. So, I think if you hire a great team, you have to give them the room to try to grow, to feel like they can evolve themselves. And so I like to just give folks the room to experiment and to try new things.
Yeah, and it works. It works really well. I will tell you, I was on a call today. The chancellor holds a weekly or a monthly chancellor council call. And today he opened up featuring some of the leaders from the Women's Forum, which is a group uh, that advises the chancellor, but really lifts up women across the system, emphasizing, opportunity and advancement. And Annie Foster Ahmed is the incoming chair of that group, and she spoke today. And I, just paused to reflect for a moment because a number of the members of the executive council of this system-wide group are from your team. So they're not only lifting each other up and succeeding within their team, but they're also reaching out and sharing their leadership elsewhere. So I think that's really cool, really exciting to see happen. So in the last 20 years, Robyn, we're going to get a minute. We're going to come to COVID. We'll get there. We'll leave that as a separate conversation. But I'm wondering if are there any milestones or particular memories that stand out for you, or a story that stands out for you that captures some of the special role of student and academic services, or that was a really interesting transition point for your team and the role you play at USG?
I have a lot of memories over the past 20 years and many milestone moments. I will say I reflect so often in 2000 on those very early days of working with an exceptionally small group of staff who had to navigate several hurdles to make the USG vision a reality. At that time, we were led by USG's first executive director, Dr. Gertrude Eaton. And we worked so closely with an incredibly talented and dedicated staff from Montgomery College, who were as determined as we were to make this USG concept work. And it's just really been a joy to see the seeds that we planted 20 years ago taking root and blossoming. It has been a great gift to be able to see that. And, there are so many milestones in SAS. And some of the biggest for me, I think, came in the way that we evolved student and academic services. As I mentioned, we started as two people. And to grow now to where we are in 4 service centers, and we have a pathway component, and we have 32 dedicated staff. Just in that growth itself is a story to tell about the way we have focused our efforts and stayed laser focused, as I said, on serving the students. The way that we would evolve, every time we created a new service center was a milestone moment for me. It's like you're adding another child to your family. And so just with each evolution would come this really great moment, because it gave the ability to focus in on an area that we knew was important to the student community. And what's special about the way that we did that at Shady Grove is the way that we really use the voice of the student to make that evolution happen. At Shady Grove, as you know, the students really have a voice at Shady Grove. It really, really comes through, and it guides the work that we do. And so what we did is we developed this model of really listening to the students, hearing the kind of things that they needed to be successful, and then pulling in a group from our home campuses, our partner campuses, to sit around the table and figure it out. How are we going to do this in the best way possible? One of the first examples of that is, one of the first things we heard from students is, it's great that Shady Grove exists. It's convenient. It's affordable. We love so much about what you're doing, but we need more help academically. We need more help with some intervention, some support, some tutoring. We heard that loud and clear, and that was one of the first spin-off centers that we created, was our Center for Academic Success, now called our Macklin Center for Academic Success. And so this model was repeated time and time again to building these milestone markers to where we've developed the structure that we have right now in our Macklin Center for Academic Success. We have our Center for Student Engagement and Financial Resources. We have our Career and Internship Services Center, and we have our Center for Counseling and Consultation. And as I mentioned, we have a very strong and robust pathway and partnerships effort that we do in student academic services. So as I reflect on the 20 years, I reflect on that. And I also, some of my favorite moments come to me when I think of every graduation celebration. I treasure every single one because it's the ultimate culmination of the work that we're doing, right? It's the work we're doing is to help students to cross that finish line. And so every graduation celebration is precious. Every time I hear from an alumni who is reaching back and, sending a postcard from a med school that they got admitted to, or, talking about a business that they started, or, or even just sharing pictures of their kids as their own families have grown. They're the milestone moments I think of that really fill my heart and remind me, this is why we're doing the work we're doing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Listening to you, Robyn, the voice of the student stands out. I think this is something that has so impressed me coming to Shady Grove. Many places talk about listening to your customer or listening to the student, or but to really do it is a real art, and it is transformative if you really do it. And you can see that in the Student and Academic Services Center as well. The student's voice is strong and clear. I sat in on a session that the student council organized on Friday on systemic racism, and it was led by two of our students who are studying to be teachers. And oh my goodness, are they going to be amazing teachers, because they led all of the participants through this amazing journey of self-discovery and learning and aha moments that I hope they continue. But again, it's just a reflection of how wise they are, and how important it is that you all give them so much voice in what happens as well. So the last year, we're coming up on the milestone here of the pandemic, and when we all shut the doors and went virtual. And I know that student services in particular has had to work really hard to make sure that our students have the services and support they need. And our students have been hit really hard by this, by lack of access to Wi-Fi, food insecurity, a lot of family challenges, health challenges. It's hit our students really hard, and mental health challenges as well. And so I know that your team has risen to the occasion in a big way to try to meet those needs virtually, try to expand those services. We also are in the process now, 1 year out, of starting to look at this time and try to reflect and learn from this. And you have stepped up to lead this important task force, the Reflect, Reimagine, and Rebuild task force, to try to figure. I got the name right, Robert. I got the name right. To try to see what we've learned and what can we capture that was innovative and that we want to hang on to and move forward with. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what was that like to take your team, team through this transition, and to try to meet the tremendous need that the pandemic has brought, in addition to being students, all of the other things that came with COVID as well. But your team has tried to rise to the occasion to meet those needs. And if you want to kind of carry it into thinking about the task force and some of the, what do you see as some of the lessons learned? That would be great to hear you reflect on that.
Yeah, I also find it so hard to believe, March 1st, that we're nearing this 1 year mark since the pandemic forced our shift to this remote operation. And I will forever be impressed at the speed at which our team was able to make that transition. I mean, literally within a week, we were up and running in providing services in a remote environment. What an impressive accomplishment on behalf of every single staff member at Shady Grove. I'm just in awe of the work that we were able to do so rapidly, mind you, all while they're also surviving a pandemic and seeing people get sick and some of them being sick themselves. It was just really an amazing feat. And one of the reasons I think we were able to transition as quickly and efficiently as we were in student academic services is, we had kind of been dabbling a bit in this area of expanding our reach to students via virtual means. So we had a few systems in place that helped us a little bit, that gave us a little bit of an edge, and it helped a bit. But what we really focused in on were what are the most pressing needs of our student population, and how can we ensure that the most disadvantaged students would have access to the support that they would need to be successful in these challenging times. And we did this in a variety of ways. I mean, we worked really closely with our partner campuses who just did amazing work themselves to make sure that students have things that you've already mentioned, technology, things you take for granted, broadband access, just having access to the internet that still continues to be, a challenge for folks. And we made sure that students experiencing financial challenges had access to emergency loans and CARES funding that our home campuses were distributing. We reorganized our food pantry. That was really a shop-in model prior to the pandemic to this contactless pickup. So that students, ultimately, if you're hungry, nothing else matters. And so we needed to make sure that students who were suffering from food insecurity had at least one source through us to be able to gain the food that they needed for their family. In addition, thanks to just so many really wonderful donors, we were able to start an e-gift card program so that we could digitally deliver Target gift cards to students who needed to shop for food items and other kind of toiletry needs. As of today, we've awarded over 1,000 e-gift cards to students, and we continue to process requests. I think our team is just incredible in the way that they have leveraged this moment and technologies in these creative ways to try to enhance engagement on campus. And we're still really struggling with the best ways to make sure that students have all that they need. We, as you know, have expanded access to our campus, something that we've heard from students time and time again say that they really need. They need access to the campus for a variety of reasons. They need quiet spaces to study. They need, better access to technology, to our broadband access. So opening that up, I think, has been a really great thing for our student community. And, but really, when I reflect on it, what I have seen is through this incredibly difficult time for so many people, the USG community really rallied around one another. And, I'm so confident that better days are ahead, but just really impressed with the work that this team has done. In terms of, lessons learned looking ahead, our Reflect, Reimagine, Rebuild team, I am so excited to engage in this work, and I thank you for standing up the R3T. Because, I think all too often in this fast-paced world that we're living in, we don't do this enough. We don't take the time to pause and step back and reflect on where we've been, what we've learned, so that we can regroup and really focus on where we need to go moving forward. So through this team of 17 people from staff and our partner campuses, and we have 2 fabulous students who are going to be on the group, we're really going to take it, as you've heard me say before, I really think that it's a once in a generation opportunity to rethink the work we're doing. And for example, I think some of the areas we really need to drill into is, this the fact that the pandemic thrust us into this virtual space, as I mentioned, that we were only dabbling in before. We really need to understand what does this mean? What does this new virtual mode of operating mean? We've proven we can be successful in this space. But we need to explore what it is going to mean moving forward. I think the same is true for students, and the same is true of faculty and staff. We've learned that we can work remotely. What will it mean moving forward for the way we do our work efficiently and effectively? The other major area that we all need to be thinking about is exploring the disproportionate impact the pandemic had on the most disadvantaged among us. Students who were struggling to make ends meet before the pandemic really found themselves struggling to hang on, just to stay in school, focus on their studies. It was a great challenge. And so the shift to this remote operations, while, for some was a minor inconvenience, for others really was an impediment that risked them being able to continue their education. And, while the pandemic brought these challenges to an acute space, for many, they don't go away after the pandemic. Yes, they were exacerbated, but they're still going to be there. And I think it's really incumbent upon us, and I think we'll have this moment to reflect, to be certain that we know who our students are, where they come from, and what are their challenges, and then how do they experience Shady Grove. And then we need to be responsive and proactive to remove any systemic barriers that shouldn't be there for those students. And then finally, many things that we'll be reflecting upon, but another that I just really, really think a lot about, and that is mental health. And it's one of the great challenges of our time. I think it's a global issue, a crisis. And again, the pandemic raised red flags, right, about mental health, and exacerbated these feelings that students often have of isolation and loneliness and anxiety. But the challenge isn't going away post-pandemic. And so I think we need to leverage what we learned in this space. And now, there's a light shining on some of these areas that I just talked about. But it's really incumbent upon us at Shady Grove and higher education, just in society, quite frankly, to really take the moment to think about what can we do to move the needle. A return to normalcy is not what we should be striving for. We want an enhanced, I don't know, call it high flex is the word that people are using right now. Return to the way we operate, but in a way that provides equal access and opportunities for everybody. So that's what I hope the R3T will give us a little bit of time to dig in more on some of these areas, and then hopefully, as you've said, inform the work that we're going to do at Shady Grove in our strategic planning effort.
Yeah, it just, I'm just so excited about this work ahead, and it'll be a really important component, a really important part of how we think about our strategic planning effort as well. So, and I'm grateful to leaders like yourself for willing to step back and reflect and take some time. I often feel like we put the pressure on ourselves to race. Sometimes we have to race, sometimes we don't have a choice, but we can slow things down and look at pause and look. And I think this is the time for us to really do that. We've got to get this right. So yeah. I'm really grateful that you're doing this.
Well, thank you for making the space for us to do it at Shady Grove. It is important.
So I'm going to close up, ask you to do a little bit of reflecting. I know you're working on your PhD. You're very close to becoming Dr. Robyn Dinicola, which is really exciting. I don't know how you've managed to juggle all of these things, but it's quite remarkable and just a wonderful accomplishment. As you're working through your PhD, I think when we work on something like a PhD, like a doctorate, it's not so much that you're absorbing content as you're you're developing your own kind of ability to learn and think forward, and our own ability to be critical thinkers and these things. It's enriching our own ability to think forward. And I wonder if you could reflect on, just as you think about your PhD and kind of what you're taking from this experience, and how that maybe sheds light on your role at Shady Grove, in higher education more generally. We're at this critical inflection point, not only with COVID and trying to think forward, but higher education is challenged in a lot of ways right now, with affordability, with access, with systemic racism, with the challenges of relevance and application to the world. And we have a lot of work to do in higher education. And as you're going through getting your earning your own doctorate, and thinking about the content of that work, but also reflecting on your experience in higher education, both as a doctoral student, as a doctoral candidate, and also as a leader in this important higher education space. What are some of the things that you see as key challenges, or one thing in particular that you see as a challenge that we really need to focus on and work on? And what, maybe there's a hopeful note you can end on for us as well, in terms of what you see coming down the path, and what you see as possible in higher education.
I think that we have been successful at Shady Grove for many reasons, but the one word that comes to mind is collaboration. I think that collaboration is going to be the way forward, especially in this new virtual space, perhaps that can come. You have said, and I agree, that USG is this hub. It's this hub of innovation. It's this hub of activity, and it will thrive off of the wonderful collaboration and partnerships that we have created at Shady Grove. One of my favorite quotes is from Jane Goodall, and she said, "What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make." And personally, I have decided that the path that I have taken in my life, and really all of us in Shady Grove in some way, we've decided that we're going to make a difference in the lives of students, in leveraging this collaboration that I talked about, to level the playing field so that any individual who desires an education and the opportunities that follow it can have one. And I think that is really what makes Shady Grove so special, and it is the way forward, I think, for us. I think we need to come together as a higher education community, leverage everything we know, everything we do well, all of our best practices, everything we've learned from this past year, and come together to focus on these really challenging goals and pressing issues that we've talked about. And through this systemness, as the chancellor likes to say, really that can be embodied at Shady Grove, I think is the ultimate way forward for us at Shady Grove. And Shady Grove really is just this beautiful place to make this happen. There's something that a student said to me one time at a graduation celebration that I will never forget. And she said, USG is the place that helped me to become the student I always dreamed I could be. And she's somebody who she overcame many obstacles, many barriers, many challenges, but she also leveraged everything that this unique collaboration had to offer her. And at the end of the day, she was able to launch and achieve her dreams. Higher education should be transformative, and it should be accessible by everyone. And so for me, it's been the greatest honor and greatest privilege of my life to be part of an institution that has been doing this important work for the past 20 years and for many, many years to come.
Robyn, what a great place to end this conversation. Thank you for all that you do every day for Shady Grove. Thank you for your visionary leadership and your passion and concern for the students. And thanks for all you do for Shady Grove. It's great to talk with you, and I've really enjoyed this a lot.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.